What is it that really does make the difference? Is it doing more of the same or doing something very different? And the differentiation when we get into rapid growth leadership is what we're going to look at now. This doesn't matter whether you're an Emirates airline who's growing rapidly, whether you're Jameer that's growing rapidly, whether you're any of the family businesses here, or whether you're a Unilever or a Procter & Gamble, or whether you're American Express, HSBC, it doesn't matter who you are in this picture. When you come down to it, you're looking at the same element. Unilever wants to shift to where they're going from 54% to 75% of their revenue coming from emerging markets, without hurting what's going on in their established markets now. That would be a rapid growth scenario. Emirates, who's up on the screen right now, who's looking to double their headcount in the next 6 years, that is a rapid growth scenario, going from 45,000 employees to roughly 80,000, so not quite doubling, is a rapid growth scenario. Many of the businesses here have huge growth ambitions, but the natural assumption is, let's do more of exactly how we're doing it as we go on. Let's continue to replace this, to repeat this. But what we need to be looking at is doing some things differently. So the key things we need to do, if you were to run through the list, is we need to move from motivation to inspiration. We need to move from operational leadership to scalable leadership, from staffing positions to driving productivity, and I'm going to walk through a few of these, from replicating quality to accelerating improvement, from working in silos to winning together, and from uniformity to unique innovation. I would ask the question here today, if you were to look down the left-hand side of that, how many of our businesses are sitting on that side? And I would ask how many of us were actually sitting on the right-hand side. And it would be a very interesting piece to go through and to rate where you see your business on this, and then to look at the rate you're growing at. If you happen to want copies of this afterwards, just send me an email, and I'm glad to send these to you. But I want to hone in on just a couple of these that really make a difference, specifically operational leadership versus scalable leadership. What we tend to do, and there's really good reason for this, we tend to focus very much on the operational side of the business. We look at perfecting our operations on that side. Why? Let's look logically at a large portion of our workforces in the region are comprised of engineering backgrounds, correct? So when we have engineering backgrounds, we have a tendency to gravitate more towards the operational side of the business. Now let's go a little bit further than this. Let's actually walk back in history a little bit. Let's go back through where modern day management started. All right? And let's look at the relationship to that to where we are today. Does anybody know where modern management theory and thinking started and when? Sorry? At the very popular, Drucker was involved in it, but the very popular, yeah. Sorry? Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit more into the future than that. In Ohio. Yeah, started largely, if we were to look back at any of the major management theories, they make a beeline back to the Ohio State studies. So if you were to look at any one we have today, you will see references to this thing called the Ohio State Studies. So it's clear to say you're right. Sloan, Drucker, a few that preceded the Ohio State Studies were the genesis of the thinking. But when it came to the fruition was in Ohio State in the late 40s and the early 50s. So I have a question for you. What's similar about Ohio? Okay, let me back up. Okay, I should do a reference here. Ohio is a state in the U.S. For all of us who don't know that, I need to back up a little bit. And it's pretty much right in the middle of the U.S., okay? So if you were playing a game of darts, just slightly missed the middle of the U.S. to the right-hand side, you're going to hit Ohio. So what's similar about Ohio and Dubai? Not much? Okay, not much at all. It would pretty much probably be correct. What's similar about Dubai 2012 and Ohio in 1950? Sorry? Maybe. I'm going to come back and say not much on steroids. Okay, there's virtually no consideration at all. Let's go through this, okay? Ohio 1950s, to use a very kind of slang American term, was lily white. Okay? So here you are, you had blonde hair, blue-eyed, all fair-skinned people. The lily whiteness extracted all the way down to everybody wanted a white house with a white picket fence, okay, in the 1950s. A major event in the world had just ended called World War II, okay, in the decade before. All of these soldiers came back home. They went into manufacturing, and in the manufacturing industry with ex-military people, they said, we have an issue here. We want to drive more productivity out of our people. So they went in and they began to do studies and they began to look at it. And what they did is they operationalized the way management was done. From the operationalizing of management came, we learned how to lead operational leadership. And the science side of management came to be. Now when we look over here, and now we're dealing with huge levels of complexity, large amounts of ambiguity, growth trajectories that completely outstrip what's going on in the rest of the world. For those of you who are in a multinational, okay, and I'm going to show of hands on this, how many of you have a growth expectation on you that exceeds your the company's global growth expectation? So as we're looking across the region, several hands are going up for the multinationals saying, and I know where some of you work. So Standard Chartered, we're expecting more growth out of the Middle East than we are expecting from our global growth at the same level. Is that exactly what's going on? So you're working in an environment, not only is it different, they're saying we want something different from you as well. We want a lot more. So when we come back down and then we get pushed back from the global headquarters says, here's your operational approach. Here's how you need to do it. And you're going, there's a small problem. You ask for this, but you're telling me to do it this way. Anybody experience that one? They want something over there, but they're saying, but do it this way. And you're stepping back and saying, well, come on, guys. That operational approach, what you're doing is you're stripping out the touch of the people, and this is true. Operational management strips out the proximity with the people, but the proximity with the people is where the difference actually comes in regards to the impact on performance. When you manage through a process, a performance management process, okay, that does not necessarily result in performance improvement. When you manage through email, it does not result in increased productivity. The change of the workplace happens life on life, and there's a very good reason for that. That is where we're actually seeing the work happen, and we can take an active role to make the business better. If we increase proximity meaning basically I can touch your hand, okay? If I can get into this distance with you, I will get more result out of you than when the distance is greater. Fair? So far, I'm hoping this makes sense. The difficulty is rapid growth leadership is not about a new formula or a complex formula. It's actually about doing all of the things that we know to do that we don't do, is really where we're going to get into. Scalable leadership, on the other hand, is figuring out how do we replicate the leader's abilities to go into different locations. So if I am, and I will pick on, there's a brand here that's expanding globally, Jumeirah. Jumeirah has functioned largely in the Dubai market with a little bit of growth outside. If you look at their growth ambitions now, they're largely outside. Fair? The question now moves from how do we become operationally excellent to how do we scale our leadership and really drive it forward, keeping the hallmarks alive. This is not complex, but it's really the essence of what's going on. It comes down to how do we lead. The next one on there that I want to highlight, and then we're going to move on to the final part that really matters, is in regards to looking at replicating quality to accelerating improvement. It's one thing to say, what's our quality standard? It's something very different to say, how do we make it better? How do we continue to focus getting it better and better and better? And as I go into this, you are operating in the toughest environment in the world when it comes to replicating quality. There is definitely a difference in regards to the quality standards around the world. Everybody agree with this? Most everybody in the room, as I'm looking around, has a pretty standard approach to or understanding of what quality is. If we were to go 2 levels below us in the workforce, is the quality standard and understanding the same? What do you think? Not at all, is it? So as we move down and we get into the level of understanding, it changes. So what do we do about it? So we say it needs to be it needs to be quality, okay? And then we say it's slower and louder. No, it needs to be of quality. And then we conclude he can't give me quality, so I will do it myself. It's a very true picture. You're saying, yeah, as you're going through this, we've seen it over and over and over. This needs to be a quality document. I hand it to you. It comes back to me. And I'm like, that's not quality. I said this needs to be quality. I hand it back. It's not a quality. I say, heck with it. He can't give quality. I do all of the work myself, and I continue to focus in that area. Goes back to the point above it. Proximity on leadership, though, is standing back and understanding what I'm looking at is saying, give quality. I should change the picture, bringing this one in to say, how can you make what you just did better? How can you improve that? I can teach you what quality is for me, or I can challenge you, make it better, and put in place the actual behavior I want to see in you over time. The behavior I want to see is not just your ability to do quality. The behavior I want to see, if I want to grow rapidly, is you understanding get better. So the natural conclusion in a management book is sit down, coach him, explain quality is X, Y, and Z. This is exactly what I'm looking for. What you're really doing is you're reinstilling what he already knows. Give the boss back what the boss asks for. Correct? That's all I'm really asking him to do in this equation. Do I want him always to do that? If so, that means I'm always dependent upon my level of thinking and my ability. So every time an issue comes up, if I want it better, I have to come back down and sorry, what's your name? Iyad. I have to sit down with Iyad and I have to say, Iyad, now here's the new way the boss wants it today. Can you make it the new way, Iyad? In that scenario, we're not going to grow rapidly. What we need to be doing is saying, Iyad, how can you make it better? He may not get it in the first 1, 2, or 3 tries at the level I want it, but I'm beginning to build in him the thinking of make it better, make it better, make it better, make it better. That's when we now move from replicating quality to accelerating improvement.